So we're here at the Influencers Conference 2010, last day, and we just finished watching the most popular panel. I mean, they were really good ones too, and this one was anticipated, especially by me, yours truly. This is Tony B is what we call him, but Tony Bacigalupo. Did I say it right?
Yeah,
okay.
Bacigalupo.
Bacigalupo. Can you introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Sure. So, Tony Bacigalupo, as you know, and I run a co-working space called New Work City, and it's a community center for independents. People who can work anywhere, work in New Work City. So we've got freelancers, we've got entrepreneurs, we've got telecommuters, we've got people who are between things, people who are working on cool stuff. And they come into this shared environment and they do their work, but they also talk to their neighbor, they make friends, they collaborate, they start businesses together. And on top of this, we're building other things, educational programs, events, services, that kind of stuff.
Wow. So you kind of actually have an incubator for influencers then.
Yeah, it's kind of like an incubator, except we don't provide the services, the people provide the services to each other.
Wow.
So the way that a typical incubator would work is it's subsidized in some way, and people come in, they pay discounted rent, and there's people who come in and sort of professionals who come in and give advice and guidance and stuff. And with this, everybody just sort of helps each other.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So how do you, and that's the business model, that everyone helps each other.
Yeah, there you go.
That's awesome. You are very influential in the tech community. You do know that.
I don't know. I mean, I think New York City certainly is.
Really? Well, let me ask you a question. You just landed the cover of Inc., right? Why do you think they chose you out of all the people they could have chosen to be on that cover?
Well...
I'm sorry, I put him on the spot. That was my Katie Couric question. Gotcha.
You know, they, the author, Max Chafkin, first approached me earlier in the year for a different piece they were working on. He was pitching a concept to his superiors about taking the whole magazine virtual for a month. They were going to produce their April issue virtually, so they were all going to go home and they were going to work wherever they wanted to work, and it was all going to be virtual. And so he came to me to consult us to help them figure out how to do it.
Wow.
So I went to their offices, I spent a day there, and I met their people and sort of talked them through how it's all going to shake out, having worked virtually, and then where the options are for co-working. And so that turned out to be kind of a small thing for us. We didn't, get like a whole lot of recognition. We got a little bit, but like it was just sort of cool to build that relationship.
Right.
And then one day Max called me and said, "Hey, I got something else for you. Can I interview you?" And at the time, I didn't know it was the cover. I didn't know until way afterward.
Wow, that's incredible. So you were shocked when that cover. Well.
Yeah, I knew by the time they were doing the photo shoot. Yeah. I kind of knew.
Oh, okay, that's right. I did do that. Okay.
Yeah, it was crazy. The guy who took the picture shoots like everything. He shoots like Rolling Stone, Wired, Sports Illustrated. Like he's shot Obama.
Wow.
I mean, he's awesome guy.
Wow, that's awesome. I love the photo, and you have such a great view. From where you sit, having New York City and seeing talent come in of all kinds in the city to work, to build, to create. What are you seeing now in the community, and not just tech, but I mean just with everyone who comes into New York City, what are you seeing now as being kind of, I don't want to say the next thing, I don't like that, but I think having your finger on the pulse of what people are doing, what's the kind of buzz, what's driving people to create, and what's really kind of getting people excited right now?
Yeah, well, when I first got involved, I've always lived around New York. Okay. I was born in Manhattan. I grew up in Long Island, and there was never really a perception of New York as being a startup town or a tech town. And when I started getting involved in the community here, it was through Meetup.com basically that it exposed me to all these great events that were going on. And I had no idea they were there. It was very underground, and I was surprised at how easy it was to just go to something like the New York Tech Meetup, and immediately, right sitting next to you, you could meet people at Google, you could meet an angel investor, you could meet, co-founders for things, and they were all just right there. You could just walk up to some relatively locally famous person and just talk to them. I thought, this is New York, isn't it supposed to be hard, And, but the perception wasn't there. It wasn't visible. And so I think we've got a lot of like college students who are in New York area schools who just don't know that the scene's here. They graduate, they move to the Valley, or they move, to wherever they came from, and they just never know that we existed. And so to answer your question, I think what's happening now is that the perception's changing. The New York scene is starting to break out. Foursquare has been a huge part of that, and there have been some great write-ups. New York Magazine did a whole piece on New York's tech scene on the cover, and I think that New York's starting to open up, that people are starting to realize, hey, there is a scene here, there's a lot of great people, there's a lot of resources, and it's all growing. And that's exciting to watch and to participate in.
And it clearly influenced you in New York City, right? I mean, because you have like a microcosm of what you just said.
Well, we were right there along the ride. We were growing with it.
Right.
And at first I was just sort of learning about it, and then I was participating in it. Right. And part of what we want to do is make it easier for people to run their businesses, make it easier for people to start businesses, and ultimately be a piece of infrastructure in New York's startup scene, to be a beacon for people who want to start businesses or join businesses in New York.
That's awesome. So what brought you to the conference today and your panel? Tell me. Hey.
You brought me to the conference.
You were kind enough to accept. We're so grateful for that because your panel kicked butt.
Well, thanks. It was exciting. So you had told me about the panel, and so I read about it, and I didn't know that like Influencer was coming up, and the panelists were just unbelievable. We have some people who have some really incredible experience in a diverse, different set of ranges. People who are influencers themselves, and, just massive backgrounds. Working for huge organizations in really great roles. 100,000 followers, and then you got people who are working with clients who have built all sorts of apps and run all sorts of different campaigns, different kinds of places all over the world. So it was just a massive, knowledge base, and I was honored to be able to moderate them, and was just hoping to sort of keep up.
You did great. You got some feisty, believe it or not, we really did get some feisty comments. People are passionate about tech. Even people who don't really know about it. So I'm going to throw a question to Jeremy, who has the camera and is my intern. Hey, Jeremy. Okay, so what do you have?
All right. So I was wondering, I see a lot of tech as applied to business and to startups, and that's great. And I've seen some of what's really been going on with the tech scene you've been talking about. But I've also seen a lot of tech as applied to other things. It's applied to government, as applied to education, as applied as a means of social empowerment. A lot of other very worthy causes. And I was wondering how you thought perhaps either New York City or other initiatives that you know of could really tie into that sort of thing, really bring those uses of technology to light in our fair city.
Yeah, well, that's actually something I've got a lot of interest in. New York City itself I consider to be sort of a social enterprise, and I think that we are moving as a culture, as a society, away from a dynamic of focusing on and glorifying building businesses that just have rampant profits and power. I think we've become disenchanted by that. We've been screwed over by it too many times. And we're starting to move towards supporting businesses and structures and dynamics that are more socially responsible, that render more of a clear social good. And I think that's great for everybody. I love the idea of having a business that is for profit, but also for the social good, and that both can coexist and really strengthen each other. And so in New York City, for instance, we've got a great event series that just started by one of our members, Sarah Chips, who is a female developer, and she started this series called Girl Develop It, and it's a series of classes that teach women how to become developers. And actually also they're starting a new series, they just launched it today, Foundations for Founders. So that it's actually a speaker series teaching women how to become startup founders. And it's awesome. She's been a female developer for a while now, and there's always talk about there's not enough women in technology, there's not enough women startup founders, and there's lots of talk. And she basically said, you know what, all this talk is great, but let's go do something. Let's just go start getting these women in a room, get them knowing that it's okay, you know, there's not like this, you know, boys club kind of stigma to it. And let's get them shipping code and starting to build stuff. And so it's just blowing up, and it's doing great. And I think there's a lot more similar efforts like that that are just waiting for someone to pick them up and take charge.
Awesome. Certainly a lot of opportunity out there. So like you said, I mean, everywhere I look, I'm seeing opportunities, and it's exciting. It's an exciting time because you can, whatever you want to do, it seems like you can find that pocket or that person or that group to help. And what you do, which is what I love at New York City, is that you are teaching the next generation as well as everyone. I mean, everyone learns from you. I don't know if you realize that, but you're teaching us how to kind of be conduits of information and of community as well. And we appreciate that. I do. Thank you for coming, Tony.
Well, thanks,
we
Charlie.
Appreciate you. Great panel.
I had fun today. Thank you.
We did too. You rock.